The Secret. Brian, we've talked about it.
Oh, absolutely.
Learned all about The Secret. Think and Grow Rich is a good example.
Oh, Kung Fu Panda.
Kung Fu Panda, where you just have to believe in yourself and you can't let negative thoughts enter into the realm of what you're doing.
So, Carrie, would you consider yourself a felon if you stole something?
That's a good question. He should have said that. He should have said, that's an interesting question, Baba Wawa. Let me ask you this. Would you consider yourself a felon if you, I don't know, what's a felony? Let's stole something. Depends on, hey, I had a bunch of stuff stolen from me and the guy's going to get a freaking misdemeanor. Oh, yeah.
It wasn't grand theft. Well, if you steal,
well, it was a $4,000 some odd dollars worth of stuff.
Right, but if you stole a car, that's a felony. Grand theft auto.
Yeah, I don't really get. So this is getting off on a tangent.
Yeah. So Trump, if you had a baby, what would you name it?
Is that a real question?
What?
First of all,
I can't have a baby. I know you can't.
You mean, well,
but I'm
I'm
just asking you if you had one.
If you were to
give birth,
if you were to go through a sex change operation, what would you change your name to?
Exactly. Yes. Yes. That is the perfect question.
You know what it is? And I don't know if this is family friendly or not.
Uh-oh.
Depends on how you look at it. But it reminds me when I was in boot camp. There was this moment at night, we were all getting ready to hit the rack, go to bed, whatever, for you civilians out there, going to bed. And so people started asking our drill instructor questions because he was a very wise person. People wanted to learn from him. So they started asking him questions like, what if this happens or whatever. And he was very good at answering them. He was a very wise person. He gave us great knowledge and everything like that. And finally, somebody asked him a what-if question, and somebody followed up with a what-if question. And finally, he just screams out, what if, what if, what if? I'm tired of all these what-if questions. What if pilgrims shot cats instead of turkeys? Then we'd all be eating beep for Thanksgiving. You know what I'm talking about. Not cats, but...
Pussycat.
Yeah, pussycats. But he didn't say cats after it.
Yeah.
So, and of course, everybody tried their damnedest not to laugh.
Speaking about that, 2 weeks ago, I had the sound clip where General Ralph Peters was on Fox.
Yeah,
yes!
right.
Was on Fox and
he called Obama a beep cat.
A beep cat.
Yes.
Yes.
But not with the cat, though.
Well, he got taken to the woodshed and was suspended for 2 weeks.
I have to agree with that suspension. I mean, you got to have some sort of a filter that prevents you
but he's
from
a colonel.
blurting out.
He's a colonel.
So...
But you got to be able to filter
You're
that
saying
out.
that if he was a general, he wouldn't be able to do that. But since he's a colonel, he could do that.
Right, and not a full bird colonel at that. Just a regular
lieutenant.
Yeah, just like regular.
No, there's only two colonels. There's a lieutenant colonel
and a full bird.
Right. He's only a lieutenant colonel?
Yeah, he's got the leaf, not the eagle.
Really?
I don't know.
You're just saying that.
Up. Yeah.
He's calling right now. You can answer. No, don't answer.
Don't answer.
Do not answer.
Hey,
that.
I think I've got the sound clip of Baba Wawa. If you want to listen to it.
Sure.
Here's Walters and Trump speaking.
And say, I'd like to be president.
I look at what's happening at the stupidity of our leadership. I look at the decisions that are made that are so bad, and I just felt I had to do it.
There are up to 7 million Muslim Americans. Do you regret at all your proposed ban on Muslims coming to America?
Not at all.
She looks like she's sleeping.
It's not a ban long term.
She's probably dead.
Our country, has to get its act together. One thing I have to say, I have tremendous friendships in the Muslim community, tremendous relationships. They're great people, but we have to get smart. And the people that I know in the Muslim community agree with me.
Are you a bigot?
Not at all. Probably the least of anybody you've ever met.
Really?
There was a recent mass shooting in San Bernardino.
Math shooting?
That seems with a link to ISIS.
She said a math shooting with a leg to ISIS.
With a what?
A leg to ISIS.
Wait, was it in a math class?
With a leg to ISIS. It was the teacher was ISIS, and his leg to math.
Somebody beat. There was a mass beating with somebody's leg.
You have said that guns should be carried to fight back against terrorism. Wouldn't that produce more violence?
Much less. Look, I'm a big believer in the Second Amendment. The bad guys...
Hold on. Pause it real quick. Oh, that's so annoying. So
she espoused her own personal...
Oh. Yeah. Well, hold on. So she said... so you say, Donald Trump, that you want people to have guns so that if there is an attack, you'll be able to fend it off.
Right.
Wouldn't that create more violence? Let me tell you something. Saying, okay, so you could have a guy murder 14 people, and maybe he survives, maybe he didn't. In this case, he didn't survive.
Right.
Him and his wife did not survive.
Right.
Maybe, let's say he did. Let's say he didn't. Who cares? But if you shot him when he got to his fifth victim, and you shot him, you bang, 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 right in his face. Oh, that was more violence. That's more violence.
Check this out. There was
that is the most ignorant, illogical, stupid, just a loser comment.
There is there's a very, very famous story. Her name eludes me right now, but our producer will get it here pretty soon. She went up to Capitol Hill and she actually spoke on Capitol Hill to lawmakers about her situation when she was She has a permit to carry concealed weapon. This young girl. To carry her Glock 19 or whatever on her person, and she was going to college. She left her gun in her car while on campus because that's the law. It's gun-free zone. 300 feet to her car, like she could literally see her car. It was late at night. She was attacked, beaten, and raped. He let her live. But she didn't. If she had her gun, it might have been a different story.
Yeah, but then it would have been more violence.
2 weeks later, that same rapist found another girl, raped her, and killed her.
Wow. So literally you have just proven, with an anecdotal example, but, I mean, it's powerful and example.
She, to this day, she carries that guilt with her about that girl being murdered.
She should look at the reality of the situation, which is that it was them telling her that she couldn't have her gun on her persons on their property. And by the way, if you want to follow the Constitution properly, it would not be illegal to carry a gun in a private or public place that says it's a gun-free zone. All it would mean is that if you were carrying, you are technically trespassing. And that's the only thing they should be allowed to bust you for. Okay, so for instance, let's say I come to Brian's house, and Brian has a giant sign on his door, on his wall, whatever, that says this is a gun-free zone. You are not to enter these premises with a weapon. If you want to follow the Constitution the way it's supposed to be followed, that would mean that if I were to walk in there with a gun, I am only trespassing. And if Brian doesn't know, that's fine. But if Brian sees the gun on me, Brian could call the cops. The cops could come, and if I don't leave, they could arrest me. They could not arrest me on any kind of a weapons charge because that would be unconstitutional. The only thing they could arrest me for is if I say, you know what, officer, I think I'm going to stay. And Brian wants me to leave and I'm on his property, that would be trespassing. I could be arrested for trespassing.
There's nothing to do with your gun.
It is unconstitutional, i.e. illegal, for lawmakers to make any law that prohibits anybody from or infringes on the right to bear arms. And that's what it says. It's one of the most clear, cut and dry laws in the entire Constitution.
Help me out with this. Okay. In Tewksbury,
was that where people do meth?
Where where tweakers hang out.
Okay.
Tewksbury, Massachusetts.
I wonder if they have a meth problem.
And that's funny. I wasn't even going to bring this whole article up, but apparently an IRS, Internal Revenue Service employee, the title is Man wearing tinfoil hat faces firearm rap.
I don't get it.
Okay. So it gets into this tinfoil hat guy. Apparently, he worked for the IRS, and he had some conversations with a mental health worker that worked there at the IRS, and they said that they wanted to evaluate him for possible mental health issues, odds and ends, whatever. But apparently, he's leaving work, or he's driving around, the cops pull him over, and he's got a baseball hat on,
Okay.
with a piece of tin foil under the hat.
How did they know?
Because they arrested him.
Oh, and they pulled it off and they found tinfoil.
Right. Well,
by the way,
but
is
hold on.
tinfoil even available anymore? There'd be aluminum foil.
Here, let me just read this real quick. Hold on, because I need help on what happened here. Tuesday afternoon, he was pulled over. They pulled over the car driven by Roland Moore, this 46-year-old IRS Customs Service worker. Federal agent had told police that he was investigating Moore, who had recently been evaluated for mental health during conversations with IRS inspectors. Moore reportedly admitted having guns in his home.
Okay.
A records check, however, showed that Moore's firearms license had been suspended 6 years earlier following an assault arrest. As detained in the Tewksbury Police Department, when cops contacted Moore, he was wearing a piece of tin foil under his cap, and he was agitated by the presence of law enforcement.
Wouldn't that be poor journalism, false journalism, or what do they call that when it's if it was aluminum foil, not tin foil? Because I know some of you listening are probably like, well, what difference does that make? I'll tell you what difference it makes. Tin foil is a derogatory term. The journalist specifically chose to use the word tin instead of aluminum.
Correct.
Because when you say, oh, he had tin foil in his hat or on his hat.
Well, we know what that means.
We know what that means.
Because you got to take off your tin foil hats to hang out with us. Or maybe sometimes when we say put them on.
Yeah, right. You have to have it off, but we do give you a fair warning that sometimes you have to put your tinfoil hat on.
Right.
But we say tinfoil for a reason, because people put tinfoil on their head because they think that it blocks out the frequencies that we know for a fact are coming from.
They're calling,
right. Anyway,
no, what they're saying,
where am I?
They're saying he's agitated. They're saying that he was evaluated. They're saying all these negative things and these things about him. And he, upon entering his residence, and they retrieved the weapons. Quote: Moore laughed and stated, "It was his natural right to have guns to protect him."
That's true, but somebody needs to protect him from himself.
Well, I added the laughter.
Oh, you mean that's not quoted in there?
The laughter wasn't quoted.
Because if it was quoted, you would have read it. You would have said, "Ha, ha, ha, ha."
But they're claiming he had tin foil.
Did it say, "Bwah, hwah, 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 hwah"? You ever see people actually type that out?
My wife does that.
Oh, boy.
It's hysterical.
Okay.
So, here's the problem I had with this whole story. It says that his firearms license had been suspended.
I know where you're going with this.
I don't have they stole his Second Amendment from him?
Right.
They suspended his Second Amendment?
Well, okay, so the argument becomes now, I know it. So what they did was just out of this realm. But what you're saying is true. If somebody says, well, where's your license to have that, to be armed, you show them the Second Amendment.
Well, I started thinking about that this week after reading this article. I carry a gun with me.
Yeah. You should also carry the Constitution with you, too, just in case.
That's something that this started making me think of. I'm like, well, in the movies, when they pull people over, like, hey, you got a permit for that gun?
You got a permit. I have a permit, sir. I have a permit.
Where would I get a permit at?
Well, I mean, you would go to a police station.
Why?
Well, right.
Do they hand it? They don't hand out permits for guns.
Are you saying it's like the 1935 Marijuana Stamp Act, where marijuana is not technically